Bang them books, instead of trying to be something y'all ain't. Ain't bang them books, instead of trying to be something y'all ain't. Ain't bang them books, instead of trying to be something y'all ain't. Ain't bang them books, instead of trying to be something y'all ain't. Ain't bang them books, instead of trying to be something y'all ain't. Ain't bang them books, instead of trying to be something y'all ain't. Ain't bang them books, instead of trying to be something y'all ain't. Ain't bang them books, instead of trying to be something y'all ain't. Ain't bang them books, instead of trying to be something y'all ain't. Ain't bang them books, instead of trying to be something y'all ain't. Ain't bang them books, instead of trying to be something y'all ain't. Ain't bang them books, instead of trying to be something y'all ain't. Ain't bang them books, instead of trying to be something y'all ain't. Ain't bang them books, instead of trying to be something y'all ain't. Ain't bang them books, instead of trying to be something y'all ain't. Ain't bang them books, instead of trying to be something y'all ain't. Ain't bang them books, ain't bang them trying to be something y'all ain't.
You hired your baby mother as your assistant and you think that I'm supposed to be okay with it? You need to fire her ass now or we're going to have problems.
She needed a job to catch up on bills and take care of my kids. How is that even a problem for you?
You hired your baby mother as your assistant and you think that I'm supposed to be okay with it? You need to fire her ass now or we're going to have problems.
She needed a job to catch up on bills and take care of my kids. How is that even a problem for you?
How is everybody doing? We hope, we pray that everybody is well and will be better. In this presentation called You Are Rude and Controlling is what we wanted to address and what we just saw and what a brother just showed in that particular matter. If I can be heard, and people are in good spirits, we ask you to press the number 4 in that particular case, family. All right? Let us examine what we just saw. And this is on the platforms Moriah Shire, Moriah Shire History Lessons and Moriah Shire History Lessons 2. All right. Now, this may be an unusual time to bring a matter early in the morning, brothers and sisters, but nonetheless, this is something in due respect that we care to sit there and do. So, this is something in due respect. We are going to ask you to subscribe to the channel, whatever platform you're watching this on now or later. We call this one here, you are controlling, no need to be, you are rude and controlling. And it shows a lack of unity. Let's watch this again and see what we can ascertain from this.
You hired your baby mother as your assistant and you think that I'm supposed to be okay with it? You need to fire her ass now or we're going to have problems.
Let us look at that right there. Saying you hired your baby mom as your assistant and you think I won't have problems with it. If the man has a title to be able to hire somebody, that means he's in a managerial position, he's in a position of authority, he's in a position of supervising and so forth. So you go apparently to this man's job or at this man's job where he holds that kind of rank and file, and you disrespect him by yelling at him, by standing over him, telling him what he needs to do, or there's going to be problems. That is the wife you get rid of. That is the wife that does not have respect for you as the position you hold at your office, as a man, as a father, or even as a person who was in a relationship and for whatever reason, not disclosed in that video, that relationship did not work out. Why do you get rid of that kind of wife? Is because she doesn't respect you. She doesn't respect your office, physically, social office. Anybody could have walked in. Anybody could have heard them at their place of work and having a squabble that needed not be. She has no respect for his job. She has no respect ultimately for his children that apparently came in his life before they got married. Now, many people would say, yeah, why would he sit there and hire her to be his assistant? Well, let's see what the man said according to that.
You hired your baby mother as your assistant and you think that I'm supposed to be okay with it? You need to fire her ass now or we're going to have problems.
She needed a job to catch up on bills and take care of my kids. How is that even a problem for you?
So we have to ask this, and I think there's a comment or so. Are we assuming that having baby mamas is okay? Is that your premise? That's the question that I see there in the comments. To answer your question, if you can hear me, no, I'm not even saying that having a baby's mom is even better than having a stable marriage before you have children, and hopefully the marriage did not dwindle. The AI video that we showed didn't get into what happened with him and his ex in that particular case. But to answer your question, and I hope I'm answering your question too satisfactory, let me know if so. When I'm asked here, are we assuming that having, quote, baby mamas is okay? Is that your premise? No, I'm not saying that that is the best premise for people to have, to answer in that particular manner. All right, so now in regarding the matter of this video, she is in this man's office apparently because he's the one sitting down at the desk there. So we can surmise that that's his office. And he is able to have a position to hire somebody who, according to him, is being able to be hired. Of course, he's not going to want, if we're using logic, his baby's mom, somebody who has any kind of connection to him, to be at a job and mess up his livelihood to his supervisors. Let us perhaps assume not to be misogynistic, hating of males, or racial hating of black males. In this particular case, that he knows that he didn't get to that position being an idiot. He didn't get to the managerial position to be able to hire anybody being a dingbat or a fool. So let's at least give a synopsis or an assumption in that particular case for that person shown, even in, say, that AI video that was shown. But here is something in this particular case. She does not apparently have a position to hire anybody, but is going to tell a grown man at his job, a grown person at his job who happens to be her husband, what he needs to do. But she's not a supervisor in that particular office or company. So where do you get off talking to anybody, husband or not, in somebody else's office? Where do you get off talking to your husband in that particular case, in his office or not? Where do you get off talking to somebody else's father, who he obviously wants to have being taken care of with the children, whether you're the other parent or not? Do you see where we're going? You have no rights to go into a grown man's, a manager's, a supervisor's, an employee's office and talk to him or her in a certain kind of way, standing over him as if he's one of the children that has to be taken care of. Let's watch this again, family, if we will, all right, and see what we can surmise.
You hired your baby mother as your assistant, and you think that I'm supposed to be okay with it? You need to fire her ass now, or we're going to have problems.
She needed a job.
You are going to say what he needs to do. You need to fire her ASS, or we're going to have problems. Then you know what? I hired the mother of the children that also come from me, so that way there'll be less problems with her being able to take care of the children. So if you are bringing nothing but argument, disrespect, and strife, and lack of unity in support of my own children, we ain't gonna have no problem. You're fired from being my spouse, because ultimately it's about the children. Now, some people may say, well, you know what? Why would he hire her as his assistant? It's because he wants to have more time with her in the morning. He wants to have more time with her in the office. So I state again, if this person has a position to be able to hire somebody, and if he is not, we can assume being an idiot, is not going to do things that would jeopardize his job, that would jeopardize his career. Because even if he's in a position to not be terminated or, quote, let go, if he does certain things, the managerial staff over him can remove him to another department, which may have a cut in pay or so forth and so on. There are different things that can happen, even without being, quote, let go in that particular case. So let's see the comments. Thank you for that. I don't think the problem is stemming from the fact that he just hired someone, but rather it is the fact that she finds herself entangled with a person from his past and perceive it as a threat. Well, if you see my past as a threat, and we are all made up of our past, whether good or bad, and certain things perhaps needed to be shed or getting rid of, then you and I, speaking in general, don't need to be. If you don't trust me enough, having this position, not that you got to kiss my behind, being able to hire people, but if you don't trust me enough that I'm not going to do something that I may feel to jeopardize my position in this particular office or company, if you don't trust that the money that I bring in is righteously made, I'm not stealing from the company, I'm not doing things to catch a criminal charge. It's not a thing where they're going to sit there and be able to say truthfully that I'm a crook. You trust the money that's brought in, but you don't trust my heart. You think that, speaking in general, oh, well, he may be doing something that he should not be doing. But let me say this in due respect in regards to what, in that case, we'll refer to as cheating. If a man's going to cheat, he's going to do it in the office, on the way to the office, in the bathroom, beside the office, in the car, leaving the office, at the movie theater, after leaving the office and getting out of the car, So when you say, speaking in general, like looking at that video and saying, oh, we're going to have problems. No, I'm going to get rid of my problem. Because obviously you don't care enough, speaking in general, about my child to be fed by the other parents. We can maybe assume that he or the lady did not put him on child support. There are men who put themselves on child support for whatever reason. And there are women, the mothers of children, who put their ex on child support for whatever reason. If that is not the case, that means that there's a level of trust. But the only one shown in there bringing any kind of problem is the one shown in that. So you're going to come into a person's office, male or female, having a certain position and title there, and tell him that he needs to fire another human being? You don't have rank and file in there to do it yourself. But you're going to tell a person who has rank and file to help somebody to ultimately hurt somebody? Do we see the problem in there being a lack of unity? She has the problem already in that video within herself. She's going to trust perhaps no man. And if that is the case, then you need to sit there and check yourself. If I just can't trust no man no matter what, or the man who say, I can't trust no women no matter what, perhaps the red flags in the past was shown and it was ignored. But if she don't trust him enough that he's not going to do things in the office that would jeopardize or mess up something of his, then you don't need to trust the money that I bring in. You can't trust that I'm not into embezzlement, that I'm not into money laundering. But that lack of trust is within you about the world, not me. Because this person that is the quote baby's mom is that for a reason and not wife. Whether it was his fault and he changed, or his fault and he did not change, or it's the baby's mom's fault, or it's that famous 50-50, 60-40. Maybe it's both their fault. Maybe they were toxic. But certainly what we showed in that MP4 video, that skit, that short one, she's the one toxic, for real. Because you don't go to nobody's office and talk to anybody like that. Man or woman, supervisor or not. If he wouldn't have been the kind of be like, securities, then what? She would have had no rights. You're going to go into a place of business and make a fool of yourself? Where is your wisdom? And wrapped in your emotions because you're dealing foolishly. Let's watch this again, family, and see what we can ascertain.
You hired your baby mother as your assistant and you think that I'm supposed to be okay with it? You need to fire her ass now or we're going to have problems.
She needed a job to catch up on bills and take care of my kids. How is that even a problem for you?
You hired your baby mother as your assistant and you think that I'm supposed to be okay with it? You need to fire her ass now or we're going to have problems.
She needed a job to catch up on bills and take care of my kids. How is that even a problem for you?
So he's asking her, and there's no more part to the video that was cut off or whatever. How is that even a problem for you? The problem is just looking at the video. Maybe if you want to quote, read body language, you put your hands on the table, standing over a man in his own space that is sitting down. And then you fold your arms like you're supposed to sit there and be some boss lady over the matter. Lady, let me explain. You cannot rule his past. If he's the kind of person that is responsible and wants to do things that help his children, would you not see that as a man that is, for the lack of a better term, as many women say, a provider? Because if the issue is, oh, he may be cheating or he wouldn't want it to be done in reverse. But if he's doing things that's ultimately helping his children, he's not hurting her. If she does something where she has a managerial position and hires her ex-husband or her baby's dad to do things, it boils down to the other partner's trust level. And if the person lacks trust in the marriage, then both parties need to evaluate that or just leave that alone. But you don't come into anybody's space, house, office, or otherwise, talking about we're going to have problems. That's how mothers talk to sons when the sons are disobedient. She does not see him as a grown, working, responsible, providing man. She sees him as somebody who she can control. And that is a problem. And I want to say this. If a man, just using that video as an instance, is able to talk about he want to do things that's going to help the other parent help their children, what do you think level you're at? He's thinking about his child. Are you jealous of their past? Are you jealous of the fact they have children? Or are you thinking that he's going to leave you for her? Because if he were to do that, he don't need to hire her for that. Because even in jobs, they frown on employee management relationships in the office. They frown on that. So I don't think you became a supervisor or a manager to be an idiot and jeopardize your own career or job or so. There's a comment in this, all right? No, I think a healthy level of boundary should be set with individuals from your past relationships if you are currently pursuing a new one, because it complicates things. You're opening up possibilities. And I would like to say this. You are opening up possibilities of never being hired at a particular job when you go for an interview. Does that mean you don't go? I don't know everybody's take on the platform into the Bible, but I like to read something and pull something up, if I may, in this, and let's see what it says. All right. Proverbs 26, KJV, because that's what most people use in versions. All right. And it says this, if we will, right? If it can be seen on a platform, I'm not sure. But let's look, if we will, right? Let's go here. Pull this up. If we will. Thank you. Let me see if I'm doing something wrong on this end. Apparently so. But I'm not able to pull it up on the screen as I would normally had done. But what I'm going to say is this, and I will cite it. In the Bible, in Proverbs chapter 26, it's a part in there that says, the sluggard says there is a lion in the streets. And what that is saying is that there are people, speaking in general, that would have every reason to not do something. This may happen. That may happen. You can always have a reason for something may happen if your mind don't want to do it in the first place. So, and I say this in no disrespect, taking this kind of statement here that says you're opening up possibilities. Possibilities of what? Having another income to come in legally for the children to be taken care of? What's the problem? The children need to eat. Who knows how many children there may be? And I don't mean to sound harsh or disrespectful. Maybe if the man wasn't with that other lady, he probably would have had more money to where the other parent, whether they're together or not, needed to sit there and be provided for the other children. Maybe his money is divided up between his children that came before that other wife or other spouse and the children that he had before then. So we don't believe to see perhaps respect and responsibility. What we see, and I mean no disrespect to the person in the comments, I appreciate the comments, is we talk many times about boundaries. What happened, no disrespect intended, to standards? What happened, no disrespect intended, to growth and development? What we, I'm speaking in general about Black people, what we speak upon more so is boundaries. I got to have boundaries. I got boundaries. But when do we emphasize or speak or call into action standards, where you can stand on something, growth and development, goals, visions, and plans. The Bible, if you're into it, also says where there is no vision, the people perish. So I cannot deal with anybody's feelings and emotions based on your lack of trust, based on what something might happen. I remember I went to an interview with a job and I got hired for it. And I went to another interview that at around the same timing that I just knew I'm going to get this one. I made sure that, the shoes was even shined even extra. They didn't hire me. That job that I really wanted between the two didn't hire me. But the job that helped me out a lot, eventually, I come to find out helping me, did hire me. So again, when we cite something like Proverbs 26, when it says the sluggard, which is the lazy individual, says there is a lion in the streets, the possibility is I may get hit. The possibility is I may get robbed. The possibility is something bad may happen. But he or she who is ever about not doing something in particular will always have an excuse to not do it. What happened if you're into the Bible when it speaks about being strong and courageous? What happens if you're talking about a man and a woman in a relationship where Malachi, the prophet in the Bible, get on the men who were being philanderers and dogs? The men of Judah have dealt treacherously with the wife of his youth. The Bible, I'm talking about the Old Testament, does not condone a man being a gigolo. Does not condone, I'm going to bring my baby mama around. We're going to do what we do. You understand? The hell with that woman that I'm married to, whether she's stressing me or not. The scriptures does not condone a man being a dog because he has someone in the house that's not his piece. You get rid of the problem. You don't sit there and cheat your way out of it. That's very immature, and it brings nothing but more problems. So in that case, all right, and I appreciate the comments. One stated, I'm not saying he shouldn't help his kids and their mother, but he should be able to reassure his new partner by showing her he cares about her.
You hired your baby mother as your assistant and you think that I'm supposed to be okay with it? You need to fire her ass now or we're going to have problems.
He cares about the person that goes into his office. And while I already promised to not use profanity on my platform last year, even though I slipped a couple times, I'm not going to use it this point. She cursed enough of all of us on here. You telling me and my job what I need to do. When you're not my supervisor, we're going to have a problem right here. You don't come into my home. You don't come into my job, into my establishment, and then sit there and tell me what I need to do. You're not my supervisor. I don't answer to you in this establishment. So when we're saying somebody has to show he cares about her, how can you care about what doesn't respect you? How can you care about what doesn't believe in you? You think I'm a down low, no homo intended. You thinking I'm a down low dog. You're thinking that I'm not worthy to even be given the benefit of a doubt. You hired the baby's mom and you expect me to be, yeah, because it's about feeding. You didn't even think, woman, about the children being fed. And not to be too personal, since I've been around my little princess more, I've seen how people get down regarding, not to be racial or misogynistic, little black girls or younger black girls being taken care of. Little black girls are not protected in many cases by older black females, and I'm speaking in general. I'm talking whether they're flesh and blood related or female friends who thought that they were okay. Now you're spending more time. Yes. But when a woman in the 1980s, I forgot who the artist or the singer was, said, "Not without my child," it's understood that a man doesn't go into a woman's life who happens to have children, a ready-made family, and then sit there and say, well, you know what? It's about me and forget your kids. But if he neglects his children, in regards for this new relationship, he's just making her feel comfortable. And then when little boys have daddy issues, oh, that exists. And little girls have daddy issues, oh, that exists. Don't think the children don't know when they're being abandoned. Don't think the children don't know when they're being loved. And I'm not trying to always make it everything about me and my upbringing and family. I remember getting money the same day I got a butt spanking. I remember getting hugs and smacks. I remember getting talked to, yelled at even, and then being given snacks that I want to eat. So I got hugs and hits. Told off by being yelled at and then given snacks at dessert, all within the same day, sometimes or the same week. But there's certain things, not to be too personal, that definitely stood out. How I learned how to read, my mother, may she rest in peace, taught me. And I was allowed to have 2 cookies while doing the reading lesson. And one time I took 3. She watched me. She didn't even stop me because I already knew what she would say. And I did know the rules. There's only 2 cookies when we're doing our reading lesson. And one time I took 3. You understand? And her statement, not even yelling at me, not popping me, is the next time when we have a reading lesson, you're only getting 1 cookie. And when we had the reading lesson the next time, I only got 1 cookie. My mother's been gone over 20 years. I'm now 46. At that time, I must have been about maybe 6 or 7. So we're talking round off 40 years. I never forgot that one time I ate 3 cookies instead of 2, and the next time I was only allowed to eat 1. That developed, believe it or not, a discipline. For me to remember that 30, 35, 40 years later. So that's something we have to ask. To reassure his new partner by showing her he cares about her. You don't care watching that video about my job. You don't care if my supervisor has me removed for bringing somebody in that maybe security needs to have escorted out. She doesn't care about his office, his space, his peace. And being concerned and being caring is 50-50. It goes back and forth. You can't care about what ultimately and meticulously disrespects you, man, woman, or child. In the comments, thank you for the comment. Let's see. All right. If you're going to use the Bible for standards, if you're going to use the Bible for standards, then he shouldn't have abandoned his family because marriage is for life. It stops there and he should work on it instead of creating a new one. Understood and respected. But let's look at this. According to that 14-second AI video, who said that he left? In it, did we glean anything from that video that he left and abandoned his marriage? Who said she didn't leave? That's not discussed in that video. Who was the worst partner of the two? And I want to say this. If a person, and I mean no disrespect, I appreciate the comment. If a person was, if we're citing the Bible, Ezekiel chapter 18, if a person was a thief, a crook, a swindler, a violent person, in Ezekiel 18 in the Bible, it says if a person bethinks and change their ways, in the day that he changes for the better, his iniquities and his wickedness will not be remembered. So let's say in that video where perhaps the Bible was not their standard, and let's say what you're saying here, that he abandoned that marriage. If he changes his ways, according to the Bible, his bad deeds, his wicked deeds, his sinful deeds are not remembered. But you know who remembers it?
You hired your baby mother as your assistant and you think that I'm supposed to be okay with it? You need to fire her ass now or we're going to have problems.
The person that remembers it is the one that goes in your office and disrespects you, telling him off and cursing at him as a man. Men and women shouldn't be cursing at each other. Children shouldn't even be cursed at. You understand? What's the point in using profanity? People have gotten on me on this platform saying, well, brother, you teaching this, try not to use F-bombs and so on. And it makes sense. You can get your point across without having to be gross in your language. So when we look at this, and I want to type this in, if we will, regarding the matter that I had just Ezekiel 18, right? That's the part in the Bible that gets into if a person lived essentially a certain way and changed their ways for the better, that whatever wrong he or she has done is not remembered. So in that particular case, so in regards with saying, if I'm not misquoting a person, if you're going to use the Bible for standards, then he shouldn't have abandoned his family because marriage is life. Understood? It stops there and he should work on it instead of creating a new one. All right. Let's say, not to be redundant, she walked out on the marriage. He still has to be taking care of his children and finding ways to do so. Maybe they didn't use the scriptures as a standard in their marriage. There are different aspects to look at this from a 14-second say video. All right. Somebody wrote here, who cares? Whoever cares, who cares? To answer that. Then, sir, why don't you provide us with full context before we try to put suggestions first? Because this video is something that I saw on Facebook inside of one of the chat things. I took it, had it converted to MP4, and knowing certain situations, not that I'm a psychiatrist or a physician, as I put in the description, just being able to sit there and speak upon the matter to get a certain point across. Aren't you assuming that he's faithful on all standards? Let's clarify that first. What happened? That video that is from somebody else's platform that apparently was legal for me to sit there and take and show doesn't answer that question. I'm not saying that that man is faithful, but I will say, according to what can be ascertained, is he has control and self-control and discipline. He's not responding to her energy the way that she's given it. He's maintaining a discipline and not even sitting there and matching her energy and aggression. She's the aggressive in that case. We can see that. She's the one going in there using profanity and telling a manager in his office, while she's not a position of authority in his office, to tell him what to do. That we can see right then and there. And you're going to tell me what to do that you have no jurisdiction over. So that is something I hope what my response to what you're stating there is, aren't you assuming that he's faithful in all standards? I would like to say this. If any man in that video or not is not respecting his marriage, hiring his ex, hiring his baby's mother is not going to cause him or stop him from being unfaithful in his marriage. As we stated earlier, if he and his baby's mother, if he and his ex are going to do what they refer to as cheating, sexual, mental, spiritual, or otherwise, that's going to happen with or without that particular woman. We're going to have problems. Can't no woman stop a man from doing what he want to do. Eventually, mothers who taught their sons about how to be respectful, she got to let her baby go when he becomes grown. So while we are thinking and understanding that he needs to reassure his new relationship of something, that kind of aggression and disrespect in that man's office, to that man's face, standing over him as if you're the mother who caught the child eating the third or fourth cookie in one night. For those who've been following along, you get where I'm going with that. You don't have no place in that. If it had been reversed, like some people were saying on the Facebook or in the chat, well, if she had a position of authority and she hired her ex, he would be upset. Then he would be the bum. If her man is what women will call today insecure, and if she hired her baby's dad or her ex, having a managerial and hiring position, and her husband, her new man, if we will, whatever title they are at that point, if he has a problem with it, then he goes in her office and tells her off and curses at her. He is in the wrong. If he can't trust her around a person that was before, then why are you with me? If you think that I'm that low of a person in character, what are you there for? If you got that much distrust? If my ex, if my baby's mom, as some people would put as in that video, is that much of a problem, and you don't believe that I'm doing this ultimately to help the children, then I'm sorry, like many of us did not get that kind of support that we needed to see as children. When you have, no disrespect intended, women that in their 30s, 40s, 50s that are now saying men have feelings too. You mean to tell me they were not taught as little girls that men, women, children, boys and girls have feelings? I watched one movie on the Tubi thing for what it's worth. And in the video, the lady was saying she wanted to have a child. And in that, whether it's a girl, she could be taught to be a princess and a queen. And if it's a boy, then he could be taught how to respect a woman. Excuse me? Not saying that I don't call my little princess a princess. Not saying that I don't call my 3 grown married sisters queen, because I do call one of my biological sisters queen. How you doing? I call all 3 of them that. I call my little daughter a princess. Not saying that they're not in a royal standard in my eyes. But what are we teaching the boys? To respect them, but we're not teaching the daughters to respect other people on this earth. That is perhaps why you can't sit there and go in a man's office and disrespect him like that. Not realizing you could get him in trouble. And then who's going to sit there and pay for those nice clothes that you're folding your arms in, ma'am? Because obviously you got too much time on your hands to go to somebody else's job or office. Let's say the wife in that video and that man work in the same building but on different floors. You have that much time. If she even works, I'm not saying she does or doesn't according to the video, but regardless, you got too much time on your hands to sit there and go and disrespect somebody in that manner.
You hired your baby mother as your assistant and you think that I'm supposed to be okay with it? You need to fire her ass now or we're going to have problems.
If we are not co-workers even, if you're not my supervisor, you have nothing to say about what I do regarding the job. Nothing. Just hope I have a good day and ask me about my day later. And if I decide to want to hear your opinion or your take or your comfort about what happened with the job that day or so, I'll ask you for it. Now, we want to talk about boundaries. She ain't respect boundaries in that. If it had been the gender's reverse, he didn't respect boundaries in that. I know of a sister whose boyfriend, husband to be, went in her office and acted a fool. This is real talk. This ain't AI, Facebook, or whatever. Her managers, when that dude went there like that, got her terminated. Who's winning? Don't go to somebody else's place where they make their money and sit there and be a problem. You need to stop right there. You're telling me what I need to do when you don't have a position of power and rank and file. I didn't ask you your opinion on the income that can come in to help my children. I'm not asking you, according to the video, for $1 to help my sons or daughters. I'm not asking the current lady in my life to even be a surrogate spiritual, stepmother spiritual, or otherwise. My child already has a mother. That doesn't mean that the child could disrespect, with my blessing, my current spouse. No. But at the same token, while we're talking about boundaries, as mentioned earlier, she in that video don't respect nada. In the comments, it says, all right, she could be reaching based on his past behavior. Could be. He could have had affairs in the past. If he had affairs, plural, in the past, which in part could spread diseases, because see, let's explain something not to be too gross. Women who know that men are cheating with them don't mind, quote, burning him. She don't mind giving him syphilis, herpes, gonorrhea, concord, etc., and so forth. If he is out there disrespecting his marriage, do you think he's going to disrespect the marriage and want to go with that woman to the clinic to make sure you're clean, I'm clean? You're already in cheating mode, according to what we're reading there. So being clean physically, disease-free, is not a top priority for people who deal in cheating. Do you know, sadly, there are women who got the monster HIV from men who were cheating? People into cheating don't care about diseases. And if he is burnt in that manner, or she is burnt in that manner, they don't mind passing it on. So if we're talking about somebody's behavior that can cause something like that to happen, he could have had affairs, and he may have. That woman shown in there, if she know that he is prone to have cheated and stayed in that, she's an idiot. You need to yell at yourself. Why have I been so dumb to stay with somebody who can't be faithful? That man didn't learn his lesson. She's the idiot in that case. She should yell at herself. We don't know that. And you're right, we don't know that. But one thing for sure is one ought to work on his family, especially if kids are there. Most definitely true. This is not to be personal. While I was last year, 2025, getting closer with my little princess, I've lost friends. I've lost contact with some people. So be it. Child and that comes first. Husbands and wives can come and go, but your children that you help bring in this earth are not accidents. Some people marry and find out they married the wrong person, but you don't have a child by accident. You understand? We read here, the Bible clearly states that one is permitted to remarry only if one's spouse is either deceased or for reasons of sexual immorality, like cheating. That is, and I say on this platform, no disrespect, this is an Old Testament-based platform. The Old Testament as a term did not come about until the coming of the said New Testament. And regarding marriage and divorce, what the Old Testament talks about in Deuteronomy 24 is different than what maybe the New Testament perhaps may say. Let me give an example. When you say about being in a marriage and sexual immorality, the Old Testament calls that ne'afah, done by the me'afim and the me'afot, which means adultery done by the adulterers and the adulteresses. Now, none of us are perfect. The penalty in the Old Testament regarding adultery is death, not divorce. When you read in Deuteronomy chapter 24, it speaks about matters of divorce. it says that if a man and a woman are married and he finds some uncleanness in her, he gives her a bill of divorcement and sends her out of his house. She is able, after that failed marriage, to sit there and get married again. His death, in a matter of how the Old Testament has it, if we will, is not necessary for that. The reason for breaking up in the Old Testament, one of the things it says, and he hates her. What am I saying and citing that in Deuteronomy 24? Having an argument, a discourse, even shown in that video there, is not grounds per se. We must get a divorce. I don't know, but then you come into my office cursing me out. You don't have no respect for me as a person. So that is, as it says in there, he found some uncleanness in her in Deuteronomy 24. Yeah, that's uncleanness. You're not even coming to me clean, respectfully. You don't trust me. Why will I want to stay in something I'm not trusted? Why does my spouse have to be part of my battles? I thought it was us, if anything, against the world. Why is she part of my problems? Why for her is he part of her problems? Why are you on the other team betting against me as your partner? You don't love and trust me. You don't respect and uphold me. You don't believe in my vision. So when we talk perhaps in Deuteronomy 24, if we're citing the Bible in this platform, mainly the Old Testament, as it is called, sexual immorality in a marriage does not have grounds for divorce. That has grounds, unless ultimate mercy by the Most High God, for death in that particular case. So just want to point that out. The portion that you're speaking of, when it said the Bible clearly states that one is permitted to remarry only if one's spouse is deceased. All right, that is in Corinthians, written by Paul, to my understanding. Or for reasons of sexual immorality, that is said by Jesus in Matthew chapter 5 or Matthew chapter 19 or Matthew chapter 12 or something of that nature. But what we want to point out here is this. When we're citing the Bible on this platform, unless duly noted otherwise, we're citing only the part that's called the Old Testament, the Tanakh, if we will, the Torah, the Nebi'im, and the Ketubim. We're in the book of Malachi, one of the later prophets in the said Old Testament. The men are gotten at. And what do I mean when I say gotten at? It talks about how the men were not dealing righteous with the women. It talks in Exodus about how to deal with a man that is deceitful with his wife. She shall go from him because he did not deal with her correctly. That is in Exodus chapter 21. As a man, you got to provide X, Y, and Z things. You refuse to do that, you have no right to be married in the community, because ultimately you bring down the community and the people. Because see, when you marry, and I'm not, again, a psychiatrist or a physician, when you marry someone, you marry into that person's family, not just that person, him or her, depending upon your gender. Their parents become your in-laws. Their siblings become your in-laws. And if there's children already, they become, by default, your stepsons and daughters. But when she has a problem or he has a problem with her or his spouse's children, that is going to definitely be a problem, because the children, according to the said Old Testament, in Psalms 127, it says children are a blessing from the Creator. So why would you see perhaps that children are a blessing and have a thing against it? What are you telling our maker, our father, our provider, by the way you treat the gift that we're given? Thank you for the comment. So if she was the one who walked out due to reasons not permitting her to divorce according to the Bible, he should focus only on taking care of his kids. If she cheats, he can remarry. Yes. If she's the one out there, quote, cheating, he can remarry. But who are we, you or I? And I say this in no disrespect. Who are we to say that one should not be remarried? Where does any one of us on this earth, and I don't know who knows who or who heard of who, when I used to watch Kevin Samuels, for those who do know who and what I'm talking about, he would tell women that you're not on a level for a high value man. What gave, no disrespect intended, Kevin Samuels that right? You want a man that makes 6 figures or 7 figures, but you already come in with somebody else's kids. How do you know her new man, done righteously, doesn't love those children and her? So we have to be maybe careful to say who should or should not be remarried, or what one's attention should sit there and be. Because according to that video that was shown, he should fire another lady. You don't even have women's honor, girl power, black girl magic, whatever. You don't even have that. If you should fire her a word and have ultimately less income coming regarding the children. I don't know in that video if that woman has a job, but she's a bum. You're a bum because you're not about supporting people. His focus, according to that video, is the children. Let's watch it again. Maybe some parts were missed. Sorry, not to be sarcastic.
You hired your baby mother as your assistant and you think that I'm supposed to be okay with it? You need to fire her ass now or we're going to have problems.
I'm going to ask this. Is that an appropriate way to handle that matter? Does somebody in the comments care to give whether that was a mature, respectful, responsible way to talk to another person in his or her workspace?
You hired your baby mother as your assistant and you think that I'm supposed to be okay with it? You need to fire her ass now or we're going to have problems.
She needed a job to catch up on bills and take care of my kids. How is that even a problem for you?
You hired your baby mother as your assistant and you think that I'm supposed to be okay with it? You need to fire her ass now or we're going to have problems.
She needed a job to catch up on bills and take care of my kids. How is that even a problem for you?
It's a problem because of a lack of trust. And if he is the one responsible for that lack of trust, the woman shown in that video needs to not be with the man whom she cannot trust. Why are you with someone that you got to sit there and periodically, ever so often perhaps, question their loyalty, question their respect, question their faithfulness in the union? If you find yourself, man or woman, woman or man, having to question that regularly, not saying that your questions are even valid, you may need to go and work on yourself and your trust values with people. Because everybody ain't a cheater. And not to be rude, if people are cheating, they are, unless they're sloppy, they're very meticulous with it. The cell phone being turned upside down does not mean that the man is cheating. It means that he doesn't want something spilt on the phone's top and base of it, where you dial the things on. That's why you put a cover on the phone. Earlier in the presentation, my phone fell. I'm glad that I had a case on the phone itself. You know how many screens I cracked with phones? So having the phone upside down does not mean that he's cheating. Looking in his phone, if he is that kind of man to cheat like that, he's going to have Wanda as William. He's going to have Pamela as Peter. And if he's like that, that's stink. It's not righteous. That's being what the Bible calls a dog in Deuteronomy chapter 17. So brothers and sisters, no, in Deuteronomy chapter, it says, don't bring the hire of a harlot or the price of a dog. That's in Deuteronomy. If you can get a concordance and look up the word dog, the man that is a philanderer, a cheater in the Bible is called Makira Kaleb, which means the value of a dog. So when we start talking, say, the Old Testament, it does not uphold and condone a man just doing him, as they saying goes today. You understand? A man who is willing to hire, according to that video and logic, a woman who probably, for all we know, left him. How we know he didn't look over his hurt heart for the benefit of the children being able to be provided for? I'll tell you why, perhaps. Because little black children don't get respect from black adults. That's why, no offense intended, in a man's guilt, you got black men and women talking about R. Kelly should be released. No, he should not. Save the kids. And to the Caucasians, the Epstein list that you all keep on talking about, you may want to sit there and really look into that. And his accomplice that was a female, Glassine, whatever that lady's name was, who lured the little girls to Epstein's Island, is wicked as who knows what. So how is she possibly able to be paroled or given clemency by Trump, who is also the friend of that person? Are we serious? Where is the protection for the children? Economically, socially, or spiritually? Nobody's caring about the children like that. You got people who are married and having children and are still deadbeat parents while all under the same roof. Don't, brothers, with the women in the spirit in that video, don't try to mate with that. Your shoe change. People can change, but you're going to have to change before we make babies. Because we don't need no more toxic matter seen by the children. They seen enough. Save the children. Save the kids. Save the offspring. In the comments, thank you for that. Why only the Old Testament? Was it the covenant in the Old Testament renewed by the coming of our Jesus Christ? I'm not calling, no disrespect intended, who they refer to as Jesus Christ, online or offline, Lord and Savior. And I'll explain that in a second. Doesn't his commandment matter? If not, then I stop respectfully. If the Bible is one complete thought, not to get into, quote, doctrine and understanding, religious, quote unquote, or not, then it would never be in Matthew 5. It's been said of old time, but now I say to you. Moses, for the stubbornness of your heart, permitted you to divorce your wives, is a part in the New Testament. There will be a new priesthood in Hebrews chapter 7 that is not in Leviticus chapter 21. The 144,000 that Revelation 7 talks about, they say of the tribes of Israel, when you read in Revelation 14, is only male. No females are in that 144,000 to be delivered. So how are the people supposed to procreate without men and women there? Are there marriages later on of the 144,000 if there are no females within such? In the New Testament, to cite it if we will, it says in Mark chapter 10, Jesus said, why you call me good? There's only one good, and that's God. So when Paul comes along later, after the crucifixion of Jesus in the New Testament, and the Israelites in Paul's day and time, in Acts chapter 13 in the New Testament, I want to cite what I'm talking about so it won't look like, oh, he's just coming out the top of his head. That's why I'm citing where I'm getting my info from, even in the New Testament. In Acts chapter 13, The Israelites rejected what Paul was saying. So he said, it was meet for you to go first with this, but now I go to the Gentiles. Then we see Paul writing to Romans, Corinthians, Thessalonians, Philippians, and so forth. And in Philippians chapter 2 in the New Testament, correct me if I stand to be corrected. There's a part in there that says that it is not thievery that Jesus be honored along with God. But if we're talking about the God that the Old Testament has, he said, you shall have no other gods before me. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image. You shall not bow down to them nor serve them. So be it the Black Mary and Jesus baby that the Pope has in Europe, because in Italy, in the Vatican, the Pope has a Black Mary and a black baby Jesus. You shall not make unto thee any graven image, the likeness of anything in the heaven above, the earth beneath, or the waters underneath the earth. Thou shalt not bow down to them, nor serve them. So if it is even the later painted by the church, the Caesar Borgia, which they portray as Jesus, or the black Jesus that the Pope has, you shall not bow down to them, nor serve them. And this is why we say only the Old Testament. In a synopsis. So I hope that answered your question in that manner. We see in the comments, it's always helpful to address things in a calm manner. It's not appropriate to scream like that, but we don't know why she's emotionally charged. That's true. It could be due to her issue or due to a reaction. So what can we do in wisdom? If we even cite the Bible with that, he, a person who controls his spirit, who conquers his or her spirit, is one who greater than conquer a city. Controlling and being able to deal with your own spirit, your own aura, your own attitude is not easy. That's why when we read in the Bible, namely the Old Testament, it says, he who's able to do so is greater than one who conquers a city. Anybody could take somebody else over, but can you take your own self over? Man, woman, child? That's not the easiest thing to do. So, yes, it is agreed. It's always helpful to address things in a calm manner. And maybe, not to add, maybe in a different setting. How is his spirit supposed to be after that kind of matter? It's not appropriate to scream like that, but we don't know why she's emotionally charged. Then she needs to dig, or if it been gender reversed, he would need to dig in his spirit, or she needs to dig in her spirit and work on that. Not always easy. Women say men don't take accountability. Men say women don't take accountability. So which gender is lying about the other? Perhaps neither one is lying. Perhaps wisdom needs to be shared between, and I say this in no offense, in the Bible, in Genesis chapter 28, between a mature conversation like Rebecca and Isaac had. One of the best relationships in the Bible between a man and a woman, and when I say Bible, I'm talking about the Old Testament, as it is called, is between Isaac and Rebekah. Also between Elkanah, the prophet Samuel's father, and Hannah. Because when she was feeling sad in the book of Samuel, he was able to say to her as her husband, while she wanted a baby but couldn't have one, am I not better to you than 10 sons? What does that tell us as men? That maybe perhaps, like you put in there, we don't know why she's emotionally charged. Men may need to learn the emotions of a woman, but that comes from conversation, not by listening to people perhaps online that say he should already know. He shouldn't ask no questions. The good man ain't going to ask you no questions. He's going to study you and find you out. We ain't got that much time on earth to sit there and study. We need to ask questions, because even in school, when you are studying something or you on the job and training, you ask questions. In elementary school, junior high, they give you points for class participation. But some, not all, but some people, females, would just expect the man, he's just supposed to know me because, you're supposed to study me. Because if you want to sit there and get with me, you got to understand. Then how do I understand without asking a question? Where is our conversation based at? If you have no conversation in a relationship, how is that going to work? How do you get to learn each other? Just sit there and be a mind reader so you can, man or woman, play the game? Well, you never did ask, but if you would have asked, we're not going back and forth. We wasted months already. Why not sit there and have a grown, mature, reasonable conversation? Why do I, as the man dealing with the lady, can't ask nothing as if you were a child on punishment from your mother? Because I think some women think their man is like a son. Like she has to humiliate him and son him like a mother would. That's not healthy. You understand? Some women may think their man is like their son, where she has a figure of authority over him. I'm the table kind of spirit. I don't have to bring nothing. You do everything. And I'm going to go to your job and I'm going to tell you what to do. Even if you sat there and didn't yell like that. You don't calmly, with the mouse voice, tell another person what to do at their job. So whether you raised your voice or you spoke calmly, what you're saying, while your voice is raised or not, it's still incorrect. You're wrong on so many levels. But we don't know why she's emotionally charged. She need to find that out and work on that. And if that's the kind of man that we are seeing in that 14-second video, if he's willing to hire his ex, and we don't know what toxic he and his ex had, to be mature enough to look past that for the sake of the benefit and the growth of the children, then should that not be a sign to her that if he was the problem in his previous relationship, that he changed? All right. We see here, my creed, Eastern Orthodox, believes in Christophanies. Christ is part of the second Godhead of the Holy Trinity. He is the Word of God. So we believe he was the one who gave Moses the laws. Let me ask this before we continue and close out in this presentation here regarding the statement right there. I don't ever remember speaking with you before, online or offline, if you're still online and hearing me address this, Eastern Orthodox, the second Godhead of the Holy Trinity. In Deuteronomy in the Bible, where it says the laws of Moses, it says here, O Israel, the Lord thy God, the Lord is one. So what second God if there's only one God? Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 4. Hear, O Israel, hear, O Israel, the Lord thy God, the Lord is one. So Trinity is not what we would call, say, an Old Testament-based concept. We also believe that marriage is supposed to be like small church, glorifying God, a union blessed by God, built on mutual respect and love. Christ commanded us to love our wives like he loves the church. I've read that in Ephesians in the New Testament, if I remember where that's at. I would like to ask this in this, because I've been asking certain questions based upon one standard of the Bible and what he or she may believe in this particular presentation. What did you think, if you care to comment, if you have the time and still able to hear what I'm saying right now then? What did you think when I said Deuteronomy, hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one? May I ask you what came to your mind? When I cited earlier Ezekiel chapter 18, and in Ezekiel 18, it talks about if a man changes from his bad ways are not to be remembered. When citing that, what did you think from Deuteronomy and Ezekiel? When I cited Malachi, all in the Bible, and it gets on the men's character about how they deal with their wives, what came to your mind with that? Are the three questions that I have. When I cited Deuteronomy, when I cited Ezekiel, and when I cited Malachi. Those are the three questions I have in that particular case. And no disrespect, Jesus did not give Moses the laws. Nowhere in the laws does it say it was given by Jesus. Now, as we get back, brothers and sisters, into this, let's play this again as we close out. Thank you.
You hired your baby mother as your assistant and you think that I'm supposed to be okay with it? You need to fire her ass now or we're going to have problems.
She needed a job to catch up on bills and take care of my kids. How is that even a problem for you?
If the lady was hired to catch up on bills, and those bills that have to be paid, maybe for her comfort and peace of mind, the wife who doesn't know how to talk to a grown man, is shown those bills, what would have happened then? If the lady shown in the video didn't know how to perhaps pull up a chair and say, even if you want to discuss whatever matter in one's public space, we need to talk about something. We need to address something. There's something on my mind that if she was using wisdom, knows how to go about a particular matter. I am of the belief that she would not, if she has a job or a career, talk to her clients like that, talk to a supervisor like that. But she does not, in that respect, that man, and by default cannot respect his children. And if you are now a grown woman who was raised a certain way and seeing things being provided for you, even if you didn't realize it until years later, and if that was the case, and you didn't think about the future, who is the toxic in that? Who doesn't think 20, 30, 40 years later about things that will happen, even if she or he is not allowed to see the fruit of their own work? The things you do affect others. The things you do don't only affect you. The selfish spirit that many have is unhealthy. You need to do that or we're going to have problems. You don't give me an ultimatum once it comes down to my flesh and blood. You are totally out of place. You have no manners. You have no respect. You do not understand chivalry and honor. I don't know why you don't understand that. But a person who can be asked, I hired her because to catch up on bills and to help with my kids. How do you have a problem with that? He remained his calm self, didn't use no profanity, didn't even stand up. He stayed seated and remained humble. But was not a sucker, a weak-hearted, beta male simp. He wasn't that in that video either. All right? Here we see as we close out. In Genesis, we hear Elohim say, let us create man in our image. Plural. No, it's not plural. We don't believe in multiple gods. We believe in the tree, in one triune God with hypostatic union. I'm going to have to look up hypostatic. Thank you. They are all one, also Abraham's guest. Abraham's guest in Genesis 18 is not named. You hear him say Adoni, my Lord, or Adonai, my lords, but the names of those lords are not identified. Correct me if I'm wrong in Genesis chapter 18. There is a part in there when it says that the Most High, Yah, went up from Abraham, but those men were not the Most High. Now, if we get a blessing and we say, that's God doing that for me, that's not saying that the blessing that's in your hand is God. That's talking about the work that the Most High has done that he showed you. So let me close out in saying this, because that video was done and we spoke upon it. And giving glory to our maker, the Most High, the one who sees all and is not seen. In Genesis, we hear Elohim say, let us create man in our image, plural. Genesis 1:27, Genesis 5 verse 2 is where it says, God made man in his image. Genesis chapter 5 verse 2, God made man and female in his image. So it was not and is not a triune matter or saying plural, because we cannot say, we hear Elohim say, let us create man in our image. We don't believe in multiple gods after putting in parentheses plural. Once you go plural, you have automatically went multiple or addition, if not multiple, more than one. Okay, so we see this. Yes, the word Elohim is grammatically a plural noun in Hebrew, biblical Hebrew, my friend. Research it. That's what we're going to do, and no disrespect. So let me ask you this. If we are dealing in biblical Hebrew, all right? Let me pull this up, if we will, no disrespect with the timing allotted, right? If we may do this, right? In Genesis chapter 1, right, that we're talking about here, and we're speaking about biblical Hebrew, right? Let's see what this says. If you're still there on the line, and while we are pulling this up, thank you for that. All right. Thank you for that and the timing with that in that particular case, right? This is chapter 1, the StreamYard. And let's look in this manner. Stop screen, share screen. In this manner, let's look and see what we can gather and ascertain in this, right? It should show up on the screen on my end, slideshow from the beginning. And what do we see? This is Genesis chapter 1, verse 1. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. Now in Hebrew, if we're using the laser pointer, right, because we done changed the topic from that video, I'm glad I didn't use no profanity, didn't get into the scriptures. It says, Bereshit bara Elohim et hashemayim wa et haaretz. So let's look, if we will. In biblical Hebrew, as you mentioned, the word Elohim we see here shown underlined in the yellow. And the word in biblical Hebrew that we see here, bara, is underlined in the black. So let's look at this, if we will, for reference purposes. Right? If you're there, let me know if you care to go over this with the timing allotted, right? And let us, if we may, trying to see here, does it show up in that case? and I'm able to see the comments. Alrighty, yes. You mentioned about biblical Hebrew, which is this is what we're seeing right here. Bereshit, in the beginning, because the word Reshit means the beginning. B means in. Reshit itself means the beginning. Bara. Let us look at this word bara and Elohim. All right? In this particular matter. We're going to go to the next slide, right? And get into this here. But looking at it, from the Hebrew's perspective, right? Copy, go here, new one, go here, right? Looking at it from the Hebrew perspective. The two words we want to, biblically, Hebrew, deal with is this right here, because you told me, and it's not a challenge thing like I versus you, no. Let us gain some understanding. Is what we're seeing right here, right? We can put this like this and enlarge it. And enlarge it more for reasonable purposes, right? Now, this word here, shown in the backdrop of the yellow, one of my favorite colors, all right, is the word bara. The word bara in Hebrew means literally he created. He created. And who is he? He is Elohim. Elohim created. So when we now understand about the matter of how biblical Hebrew works, right? We know that the verb and the noun must agree. So if Elohim is shown as the one who's the Boreh or the creator and not Boreim, the creators, though Elohim, Boreim may sound like it rhymes, what we're dealing with is not a plural matter of the word Elohim. It is more so a matter of the intensification of such. Mayim means water in Hebrew. The same word Mayim means waters. Let me give an example, if we will, family. All right. Let's look at this. And thank you for that. Right? We have here Mem, Yod, and Mem Sophie. Now, copy. If we were to go back into the StreamYard, right? And look at this word here. And I'm going to pull it up inside of the comments to show what I'm talking about. This word there, though shown small because of the font, means water, single, and waters, plural. Anytime just because you have im in Hebrew at the end of a word doesn't automatically make it plural all the time. Panim means face. When you see the face of God and the face of Moses, panim b'panim, face to face is how it's translated. It does not mean faces in that manner. Mayim means water and waters. So we have to know context clues in dealing grammatically with biblical Hebrew itself. So taking that stance, let us look. It says the singular form of the Hebrew word Elohim is Eloha, which means God or deity, while Elohim is grammatically plural. While no offense, you contradicted yourself because we see Elohim in Genesis. Then you're saying, right? If I didn't misunderstand it, in Genesis, we hear Elohim say, let us create man in our image, plural. Or were you saying that the image was plural or God was plural? Because in Genesis chapter 1, verse 27, this is what we read in the Bible. And it's cited right here, if we will, right? I like to see, pulling this up, if we will. Because we only have one creator, not creators. All right, so take that part off there, that part off there, right? If we go here, it says this in Genesis chapter 1, verse 1, when we first read of Elohim. That's why I went there first. In that particular case. All righty. I was trying to get this part onto the screen itself to go like that. Don't know what happened, if it's able to, or how does that work, or so forth, right? Genesis 1:26. Here's what it says. Going here, we're going to copy and paste it, and let's see what it says. And God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. Now, if you mention biblical Hebrew, let's go there and let's see what it says. All righty, in this particular case. Because without, maybe I missed it, without addressing Genesis chapter 1, verse 1, and the issue with the grammatical matter of mayim and so on, and panim, you're asking me to go to Genesis 1:26, which we are doing right now in this case here. I see it on the screen. It says in the Hebrew, while we're talking biblical Hebrew, Vayomer Elohim. Let's stop right there. Right? Let us look at this that you're seeing on the screen right now. Right? Copy and go right here. Vayomer Elohim. This Elohim that you're seeing, shown with the backdrop in yellow, is plural, unless I missed what you were saying earlier. But here's the issue. In Hebrew, the verb, the noun, the adjective, grammatically, biblically must agree. So now when we understand that part, and we see this here backdropped in the green, right? There's no way Elohim is seen biblically as plural in this manner. All right, so I want to show that in this case here. Are we able to see that here? And God, he said. Now, if it was plural Elohim, it would have said grammatically correctly, Vayomru, not Vayomer. If you go into your Blue Bible Dictionary Concordance, it goes into through what they call parsing with the first person, the second person, the third person, singular and plural. So the fact that Vayomer means and he said, and it identifies who he is, Elohim, shows you that biblically Elohim is not seen as plural. Just as much as mayim, meaning water, is not seen as plural. Just as much as the word panim in Hebrew is not seen as plural. So there are several instances, if we're talking biblical Hebrew, where such is the case in that manner. All right. So this is not a belief. This is a linguistic matter that we're talking about. So when we now see here, we believe in one God with one essence, but three persons. That means you're putting one into three or three into one. Three doesn't go into one, but one goes into three, however. It is referenced in many parts of the Old Testament. He says, in our image, also Genesis 1, said the Spirit of God was hovering. Ruach Elohim barakapet means the Spirit of God hovered. Do we understand that the Spirit seen in Genesis 1 is a feminine matter and it's still singular? Not a woman, but a feminine matter when we deal grammatically with the word merakapet in Hebrew. I would like to show that, if we will. All right. When it says, and the Spirit of God hovered, right? This is Genesis chapter 1, verse 2. looking at it with the timing allotted in this particular matter. Let's look. All right. Hold on. I'm able to show that on the screen like that. I didn't know that. All right, so let's look, family, right? Because Hebrew is not misogynistic. Now, when we look at this right here, this word here, backdropped in the green, right? And then, brothers and sisters, we show grammatically in Hebrew, we want to enlarge this letter here, if we will, right? And we want to bold it. And we want to sit there and put it in a different backdrop color of light blue. What you're seeing there in that light blue shows that the Spirit of God, which is the word Ruach Elohim, not Rukot Elohim, meaning the spirits of God or the spirits of gods, because we only have one creator. And this is why maybe I missed the comment, because I asked you, what did you think when you heard a brother cite Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 4? Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Maybe I have to read I asked that earlier. Maybe I have to read the comments to see where that was addressed. Because one of the problems of ancient Israel is having multiple gods in their head. Want to know why the Israelite kingdom fell in 70 AD? And before that, the matter what happened with the Greeks coming in, and before that, the matter with Nehemiah and so on having to answer to Persia, and before that, the matter with Babylon, and before that, the matter with Assyria, and before that, the matter with the Moabites and the Philistines and the Israelites losing it, because Israel did not understand that the Most High, Hu El Qana, is a jealous God who does not give his glory to another, nor his praise to graven images. Ancient Israel messed up by worshiping other gods. And in their mind, it doesn't matter what Jeroboam is setting up in the Book of Kings, because God is strong, so we can use an image that the Most High has already made the bull and it's strong. So let's bow down to the golden calf. No, Israel, you was not supposed to do that. You understand? It's not a belief, it's a fact. So we want to sit there and show that in that particular case. Now, when we're dealing with biblical Hebrew, as pointed out there, right? And it distinctly shows and says, right? Genesis 1:2, which I'm seeing on the screen, shown in the blue. Ruach Elohim Merakepet. Just want to point out, for grammatical reasons, for matters of understanding, that Spirit of God is a feminine matter. Not a woman, but a feminine matter. Now, in Genesis 1:26, which I'm able to see that we can see on the screen now, it says, and God said, let us make man in our image. Who was he talking to? When it says, let us make man. God is our creator. So he will be talking to the things already created. What is man made of? Nitrogen, magnesium from the earth. Dust you are, and to dust you shall return, is what it says. Remember in the Bible, it says, remember that we are but dust. So who would God be talking to about the creation of man, unless not trying to put words in God's mouth? The things and the objects used to make man by God. Genesis 1:27, we see the following, if we will. And God, which is shown in the singular, God created man in his own image. So the us was already the things under the authority of the Most High, that the Most High used, the Creator used to make man. So now giving credit back to the one creator of heaven and earth, the sea and all that in them is, and man is part water, part land. Man is part vitamin, part mineral. This is not to be on some science experiment, but more so rather in showing in Genesis 1:27, after we went over Genesis 1:26, God created man in his own image. If the us was Jesus and God, as some say, or God and Jesus, as some say, then when did it become from us to his? Unless it's talking about the things that we as men know that we're already made of. Because we're not made in the image of God and Jesus. Jesus, according to the story, is without sin, but we are born in sin. Jesus had no wife, according to the story, but us as men are told to be fruitful and multiply and to treat our wives correctly. So what image then, if the image in Genesis 1:26 is perhaps by some God and Jesus, what image is that we men were made in? Jesus followed the laws according to the understanding of being circumcised. That means he had a phallus, not to be gross. In Luke chapter 2, Jesus kept what they refer to as the Last Supper, which was the Passover matter, which is a law that was given. If you say that Jesus Christ gave Moses the law, why would Jesus then have to follow the law that he was given? Do we get what we're saying? What happened essentially with Christianity, and no offense, is that they attempted to make God into a man and a man into God. And that's why you got the problems that Mary doesn't know who her baby's father is. In Luke chapter 1, how shall this thing be, seeing I know not a man? Mary asked that. Sarah then asked the angel, how was she going to become pregnant? She knew who her husband was. She knew who the father of her children would be in Genesis chapter 18. Mary doesn't know that in Luke chapter 1. This is why we have the issue where Paul never mentions what is referred to as the Immaculate Conception, when God put the baby in Mary, is only found in 2 of the 4 biblical gospel writers. Because the concept was to try to make Jesus into God. But you're going to have a problem, because as it says in Proverbs chapter 30, it says, add not to the word of God, lest he reprove you and you be found a liar. So when Jesus has brothers and sisters, John and others, in Matthew chapter 12, but it's said to be the most righteous and the epitome of what is right to follow. How then in the New Testament, in Luke chapter 1, John, the son of Elizabeth, and I think the husband name was Zachary or Zebedee, I could stand to be corrected in that manner. But John, the cousin of Jesus, was born before him. And in Luke chapter 1, he is noted, his parents in Luke chapter 1 were righteous and blameless before God. If in the New Testament there were people righteous before the birth of Jesus, how then could Jesus be the epitome of righteousness itself? And that you have to go through him in order to get to God. That's in Luke chapter 1, verse 5 and 6. But there's a question on there, all right? In this particular matter. The strongest argument for the Trinity is not the grammar, because context matters. You cannot have context without grammar in any language. The Trinity is not something that even all Christians espouse to be quite candid. Grammar and context go hand in hand. You can't knock grammar of the language, because that's the rules of the language. Context is what a people mean in their heart and their spirit in getting a point across. For instance, if I were to say, give me a high five, I'm not talking about $5. But I still have to speak grammatically correct, even if my context is not all one and same complete thoughts. The main argument is theology. God saying our image is plural, but Elohim can be singular in this context. All right, let's go, if we will, in the Bible, if we will, because I see, no disrespect, that you're saying that Genesis 1:1 is saying Elohim is singular in this context, right? Let's go, if we will, to let the book speak for itself, the scripture speak for itself. 1 Kings chapter 18, Hebrew. Now, and I say this in no disrespect, but when it was said, oh, okay, look it up in the Hebrew. This platform at times goes into the Hebrew, right? And in the matter with Elijah, with the prophets of Baal, it says here, right? When the fire came down, and for those who do know this story, right? In 1 Kings chapter 18, verse 38. We read this as highlighted. This is again in the Bible in 1 Kings chapter 18, 38. Then fire from Yah fell and consumed the burnt offering and the wood and the stones and the dust and licked up the water that was in the trench. And when all the people saw it, fell on their faces, and they said, Yodewahe hu ha Elohim. Yodewahe hu ha Elohim. Now let's look at this, right? If we're dealing, because we cannot get rid of grammar. That just cannot be in a language. All right, that has to be a very much forethought. Now let's look. And it says right here, we want to bold it. We want to backdrop that in green. And we're going to put all of this inside the regular standard way of how Hebrew's written online. All right. I want to make a point with this if we may. Thank you for the timing. Okay. And it says right here, and they said. Now, this word, and they said, is the plural. So grammar and context has to be noted, right? So let's look at this right here. Wayombru, right? And they said. Now, when we go back here, right, it says Wayomer, shown there in the green. And he said. So now we see, getting back into the scriptures itself, the distinction when it says in 1 Kings, go in biblical Hebrew, when it says, right, and they said, this they said right here, that's plural, they. Elohim, shown in Genesis, doesn't say, Wayomru Elohim, in God's plural said. It says, and God, he, singular, said. That's why Genesis 1:27, we can comfortably cite it by saying, and God created man in his own image. So who was he talking to but the elements that were already created that man was made from? The earth. Dust you are, dust you shall return is what the Bible also says. So looking line upon line, precept upon precept, here a little and there a little, and no scripture is left to a personal interpretation. How then do we fit in somebody born centuries after the matter of Genesis to say that that's who the Most High God was talking to? When the Bible doesn't even say that. So these are things to ask upon this particular matter. All right. I know the conversation has gone from a video that was done into matters of biblical Hebrew. It may happen. It comes with the territory. All right. Your statement is, that's why I told you about Christophanies, or Christ foreshadowing in the Old Testament, like he was the one whom Jacob wrestled. That's not logical. He was the one who was talking in the burning bush. The Bible doesn't say that. It says an angel of the Lord in in Exodus chapter 2. People inserted Jesus in it like Christianity inserted the New Testament to be with the Old Testament. Isaiah 53 is also talking about Christ clearly. In Isaiah 53, before we close out with the timing, who would believe our report? And to whom is the arm of the Lord revealed? Let's look, if we will, in that. We'll, with the timing allotted, not trying to rush nothing per se. Isaiah 53, Hebrew, Makom, in that case, biblical Hebrew, shown online. And here's what we're seeing. Who would have believed our reports? Who is speaking and what is the report is the question. Because if we're talking about the report of the children of Israel, sociologists and even some archaeologists don't believe that Israelites were ever enslaved in Egypt. They don't believe that the Red Sea parted or the Reed Sea parted. Who will believe our report? And to whom was the arm of the Lord revealed? So let's look and see whom the arm of the Most High God was revealed to. If we go line upon line in the scriptures, Exodus, right? It says Exodus 4 there. But if we were to go to Exodus chapter 6, right? And here's what we read in Exodus chapter 6, verse 6. Wherefore, say unto the children of Israel, I am Yah, and I will bring you from out of under the burdens of the Egyptians, and I will deliver you from their bondage, and I will redeem you with an outstretched arm and with great judgments. So now when we read about the arm of God being shown to who? The children of Israel in the book of Exodus. So when we go back in Isaiah 53, and it says here, who would have believed our reports? And to whom was, or to whom hath the arm of the Lord been revealed? It was revealed to the children of Israel, the Israelites. Isaiah was an Israelite. So now when we read who would have believed our report, we got to understand what is, or who is the who being spoken of. It's a question. These questions in Isaiah chapter 53, verse 1 need to be answered. Who is Isaiah talking to? What is our report? And whose report is it? And to whom have to, those are two different questions. And to whom have the arm of the Lord been revealed? In Christianity, they like to say perhaps Jesus was the arm of the Lord. That's not the question. The question Isaiah is asking is not what or who is the arm. The question in Isaiah 53 verse 1 is asking whom was shown this arm of the Most High God. This is why when we go back in Exodus chapter 6 verse 6, it says with an outstretched arm and with great judgments. Now, going back to Isaiah 53 with the timing allotted. For he shot up before, it says, for he shot up, right forth as a sapling and as a root out of a dry ground. Who shot up right as a sapling and as a root out of a dry ground? Who was shown the arm of the Most High? The children of Israel. The dry ground is the wilderness of Sinai. After the Exodus, that desert was the dry ground that Israel shot forth from before the Most High God. That's why in the book of Hosea, it says, when Israel was a baby, I held him by the arms. When no nation cared to sit there and be around him. All of this has to be understood from a biblical, historical context. And even in that, we still can't get rid of grammar. So listen, in no disrespect. All right? And you're saying Deuteronomy 6:4, the Lord our God Elohim is one. That is what I mean by saying context matters. Yeah, the Lord Yah, the Most High does not change. Yah doesn't become a different Yah anywhere in the scriptures. Our Elohim, the Lord our God, Yah Eloheinu, because Elohim is God and Eloheinu is our God, not our gods. The Lord is one. That is what I mean by context. Yeah, and it's also grammatically correct. Is one. That's what we were talking about. All right. And another statement in the Hebrew created bara is singular, even though Elohim is in plural form. This means the subject is being treated as one, not many. But if we just went over biblically, when it says, and he said in Genesis, in a matter where they said plural, showing it in the Hebrew if the video was watched. So it would have been Elohim Baruch. They created. Gods, they created. If we're talking plural and singular, you can't mix and get rid of grammar. Earlier, if I remember right, you were saying something about the context and not matters of grammar. Getting rid of grammar, Jesus fit right in because you could put anybody in when you get rid of the rules of the language. You see how you can't say that he's the suffering servant and an angel that's going to sit there and be used to sit there and get rid of the captivity of the children of Israel in Exodus. But then he's a suffering servant. He only lived to be 33 years old. And it's not to be offensive or disrespectful. But looking at it like this, taking the comments, right, in this matter here, all right? Wanted to go down. We spoke on Isaiah 53, all right? Don't know if it was agreed with upon, but we line upon line. Who was being spoken to? What is our report? You could go to Psalms chapter 44 when it talks about what the report is. All right. Does our image have another meaning? Or are you saying he was talking about the ingredients he made man? How does that equate to that? Because we are the ingredients that the Most High used to make man. All we have to do is study about man and its makeup. That's easily done. Learn what man is made of and see that we came from the earth. As we pointed out, dust you are, dust you shall return. All right? That's how it equates. I'm going to read the comments, addressed it, and then I have to, with the timing allotted, make my move. We have a body, a soul, and spirit. We have three body functions as one, like God, Father, and Holy Spirit. But the meaning of bearing the image of God goes way deeper than that. And I mean no offense. If you get rid of the grammar of a language, you can go as deep as you want when you decide, speaking in general, when I say you, decide to sit there and say, this must mean this, questioning what the scriptures itself lines upon lines saying, and goes deeper. Everything doesn't have to be very, very deep. Certain things are just plain and simple and black and white within the scriptures. And God created man in his image. But people are focused on us because maybe, no offense, people don't want the Most High God, because with Yah comes laws. Laws that talk about how you treat your wife. Laws how you don't go in the person's business and disrespect him in front of other people or to himself. Laws that sit there and tell you to take care of your children. Laws that say if you get into a married situation, you know how to conduct yourself because children are still looking up to you, as we see in the book of Psalms, as we see in the book of Proverbs. See, once you get rid of the Hebrew grammar, you can sit there and get rid of other things that the Old Testament, as it's called, is also talking about. You don't have to sit there and respect your marriage. Right? After all, Jesus wasn't even married, neither was Paul. And Paul in the New Testament said he wished that all men in Corinthians were like himself, unmarried. So there's a lot of things you can get rid of once you have a concept of getting rid of the grammar of the original book's language. No offense intended. In Hebrew, created bara, this means the subject is being treated as one being. The Most High is one being. Here is the Lord our God, the Lord is one, as we just went over. And here we see, look, man, we can go all night. It's daytime where I'm at with this back and forth. So I guess in the end, if we can't come to a common understanding, we can agree to disagree. I enjoyed the talk. Have a blessed day. I want to say this in closing, and no offense intended. Thank you, family, for the time. No one said context. No, I said, pardon me, I misread. No, I said context matters when it comes to grammar. I didn't say grammar doesn't matter. If I misquoted you, I stand corrected. Sorry about that. That's why I like to go through the comments in that case here. Now let's look at the comments again. Yes, the word Elohim is grammatically a plural noun in biblical Hebrew, my friend. Research it. So then when we went into the biblical Hebrew, which is something I didn't expect after doing a platform on this one, but it is what it is. The singular, and I don't mind doing that either. The singular form of the Hebrew word Elohim is Eloha, which means God or deity, while Elohim is grammatically plural. Now, that is where I got the understanding to go into Mayim, which means water. But it's seen as im, not my. And then that's water, and Mayim is the plural of such. All right? What does Genesis 1:26? We went over that. What does, okay, that's pointed there. We believe in, I don't know who we are, in one God with one essence, but three persons. And that's a concept. Father, Son, Holy Ghost is not in the Old Testament. You have to try to go to a whole new book that was put in there during the time of the Roman Empire by the orders of Pope Pius II in the 5th century AD to make what's called the Old and New Testament connected, if you study history of the Bible canonization. Okay, so looking at that in that manner, right? The strongest argument for the Trinity is not the grammar, because context matters. But if you're not in the grammar, but context, that's the line that I was talking about. How are you going to, the strongest argument for the Trinity is not in the grammar because context matters. But if you're saying that you're not saying grammar doesn't matter, but the Trinity doesn't grammatically fit in Hebrew thought, when you get right down into it, you cannot grammar ways show the Trinity in a Hebrew thought. Grammatically, if that's even a word, maybe it's not, I stand corrected. You cannot through grammar fit the Trinity. You cannot in that particular case. The Trinity does not fit in context because it doesn't fit in grammar in Hebrew. It's an abomination to the Most High God. Not that anybody is perfect to add to the Most High God. He's already perfect. We humans are the blemish. Not the creator. But in trying to make Jesus a God, one had to do say X, Y, and Z in X, Y, and Z case. So I'm just looking at the comments there in that particular case. All right. Look, man, we can go all night with this back and forth. You told me to research something in biblical Hebrew. And then we went there with the timing allotted. I don't know what was expected by asking somebody to go into the biblical Hebrew and research something. This is not my Hebrew channel platform. This is Maury Yeshaya history lessons. There is a Maury Yeshaya Torah lessons, or Maury Yeshaya Hebrew lessons on YouTube. So when a brother was asked to go into the matter Hebraically, biblically and Hebraically, and biblical Hebraically, that's what we did, and respecting the audience.